through the stories that define the artists playing Bonnaroo. Who are they? What are they? What will you see? The what? Which bands this year that matter?
Yay.
With Brad Steiner and Barry Corder.
Like a darker haze. Ooh, the phone man up in space. So bartender, be kind tonight and fill my cup to the brim. 'Cause we all want to dance tonight and fill the club. So I guess I better hold my drink real steady. 'Cause the vibe up in the room making me a little giddy. For the beat in the room like a day up in the womb, knocking cocks off them walls from the bass drum boom. So now I spin around like a dreidel in the field. Is it time to cut your cab back?
Barry Corder is hula hooping as we speak.
Exactly.
Yeah. It just puts you in the Bonnaroo spirit, doesn't it?
I'm that guy out in front of the tax office on the street. The wind, arms.
That crazy, windy plastic man that's flowing in the breeze. Welcome to the What Podcast. That's Barry Corder. I'm Brad Steiner, and today we're talking to the Revivalists because you asked for it.
That's exactly right. Because you asked for it. We had a nice conversation in week 4, Brad.
Yeah.
And speaking of, because you asked, and I know you'll love this, but I got a call this morning at about 8 o'clock, which meant it was 5 o'clock his time, from our friend Dennis Haskins, Mr. Belding.
Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell.
From Saved by the Bell, okay. Called, and in the course of our conversation, he said he went and saw Bozzy last night.
He? Okay.
Another one of our guests in an upcoming episode.
An upcoming podcast episode, sure.
He said he was great, and it's a great live show. So.
Well, it's great live shows. We keep finding the artists over and over and over that put on a great live show, and Revivalists pretty much made their name being a great live band. There's just a different feeling, at least for me, from the albums to the live show, and it's that live show that made everybody, or at least our listeners, reach out to us and say, get the Revivalists, because that live show is just unlike most others.
Yeah, that's right. And what's neat about seeing a band like that at a Bonnaroo, My Morning Jacket comes to mind, 4 hours in the rain several years ago. To be honest, I had not heard of them, was not a fan. Saw half of that show and became a massive fan. So I only saw 2 hours.
A Bonnaroo podcast for Bonnaroovians by Bonnaroovians. Barry Corder from the Chattanooga Times-Press. I'm Brad from Hits 96 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We got a chance to talk to the Revivalists. Start playing that here in a second. Later on the podcast, ways in which you can interact with us. You can win Bonnaroo tickets with camping passes. And we've got an update on some giveaways that we've done over the past couple of weeks to you, the fine What Podcast listener. The reason I like talking to the Revivalists is because they have that thread that goes right to the history of Bonnaroo.
Yep.
If we talked to Ashley Capps last week, he's just one half of where it started. The other half was the New Orleans culture. That part of it, if you didn't know much about Bonnaroo, you definitely feel it at the festival. There always seems to be something that is so New Orleans that happens on the grounds, whether it's Trombone Shorty showing up in every place, or if it's the parade, or if it's
food. The name itself, Bonnaroo, is Creole or Cajun for a good time. Superfly, which is now in New York, was the co-founders along with Ashley, I think they started in New Orleans. So that's why you have that feel. Alan Toussaint was always been there as well.
The Neville brothers had night or year after year after year, they kept showing up.
Yeah.
Playing 3-4 shows a weekend. Yeah.
It definitely has that New Orleans kind of vibe and feel, and always has, and I guess always will. So
The Revivalists, the star of this week's The What podcast. This was our conversation with the Revivalists just a few days ago. By now, I hope that everybody has heard the story of you guys, because, Jesus, you guys have told it 1,000 times. But
Thank you.
Yeah. But it takes on a whole new life when you consider that the last year and a half of you guys' life, there's no preparation for it. There's absolutely no way to sort of wrap your head around maybe what the last year and a half might have been, and it is very almost storybook. Whether or not the beginnings of it exist or not, you guys sort of did, I feel like, old school way to go about a career. You get a bunch of friends together, you go on the road with them in a van, you eventually get a bus, and then, oh my God, we might have a #1 single on our hands. And then your life changes and you're headlining Bonnaroo. You're one of the headliners of Bonnaroo. That can't seem to make much sense to you right now, huh?
our audience are Bonnaroo fans, so we may be a little bit more in depth. But what is that like physically and emotionally to go from the van to suddenly, and you have to be so proud doing a morning show with Kathy Lee Gifford. That had to have been a high point. But
Yeah, that was great. Great.
So what is that whole transformation like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's sometimes I kind of try to like compartmentalize it and not really. I still try to think about just like, man, I'm glad I'm getting paid like anything to do any of this, you know?
That's certainly a thing.
You're not working on a roof, that's for sure.
Right. But physically for you guys, what are the things? Is the van bigger? The hotel room's nicer? People carrying stuff for you now? You still have to carry your own stuff? What changes?
Oh, yeah.
Our lives have changed in pretty much every facet of it. To me, it was almost like, you're kind of going up you know how you get on a roller coaster and you go up and you're about to go down the hill and you're right over the thing you've been you got all this anticipation and you're right there at the hill. And then you go down and you still got a little bit of the woozies and you're like, oh shit. But you're just having the time of your life. And then you go around this curve and you're like, oh shit, now let's go out. But we made it, So not to be too cliche, but really a bit of a roller coaster ride. And we're still on it. I don't know. Hotels have certainly changed. They've gotten a little nicer. Our bus has, gotten bigger, I guess,
Yeah, went from van to
more
bus.
comfy.
How does it change your songwriting approach? Barry sort of asked it earlier. The pressure is also not only got to be refreshing, but it's also got to be a little bit debilitating. Does it change the songwriting approach to you?
I was actually talking about this to somebody the other day, and honestly, like at this point in my life and where I'm at and we are at in our career, I'm happy with where we're at. So like if we don't have another hit song and we just continue to do what we do, I'm cool. So like I don't really, it doesn't feel like pressure to me. It's like I don't really have I'm not feeling pressure to write another hit song because I don't care if we have a hit, I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't write music to write hits.
Yeah.
Like, it was never a thing. Like, our single was a song that it was a true feeling, It was like, I really wish I had more time, before I met my current girlfriend, with you. Like, not to say that I met, and wasted time with other people, because certainly not. It's all a part of the journey, and it's all a part of us growing as people. To say that, like, am I feeling pressure to write that kind of stuff? No.
Nice.
It feels. It just feels like any old day in the studio, I guess.
Can you go anywhere ever and not hear that song?
No.
It's in every supermarket. My mother sings it. It is just one of the big monster hits of the last 3 years.
Yeah. I'm betting if we go out in our cars right now, it's on, and when we go home and turn the TV, it's going to be on. Sure. Yeah, it's everywhere.
It is a monster hit, and it's a song that surely changed lives.
Yes.
Changed their lives.
Changed their lives. Changed. Now the hotels are a little bit nicer.
Sure.
People answer your phone calls. They return phone calls.
We just need that hit, Barry. We just need that one hit.
Man, I know.
And of course, the song changed over the course of the years as it got bigger and bigger and bigger. The song kept getting longer and longer. You're going to hear it at Bonnaroo. It's going to be probably 9 minutes long. But that's just part of the festival atmosphere. For you guys, the Revivalists, are you guys big festival fans? Do you find yourself immersed in the festival culture?
When I'm trying to discover new stuff, I mean, you kind of can't do better than a festival. It's like a musical buffet. Just being able to go, I've been exposed to so many things that I never would have heard of otherwise. Like at Voodoo Festival in 2004 when I was a freshman and had just moved to New Orleans. We wandered into some random tent and I was like, what is going on? There's like a shirtless Balkan man and two washboard players in striped tie. It was Gogol Bordello.
Oh, wow.
Holy crap.
That's pretty good.
These guys are insane. Yeah, stuff like that. You can't get those moments really at another kind of thing. But as somebody playing, I like every show.
Has anybody told you anything about Bonnaroo? Do you have a thought in your head as to what Bonnaroo is and what you might expect when you get there?
So
we've played here.
We played Bonnaroo.
Did you? What year?
We played it in 2012, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Probably something like that.
Well, long time ago, before anyone even knew who the hell we were, for sure. But we played the one of the tent. I want to say it was the What's This tent, or do you have what are some of the stage names?
We did the solar stage, and we did the tent at some point. We did 2.5 shows, I think.
Wow. Yeah, we did the tent that was directly across from the main stage. And so whoever ended there, they ended, and then as soon as they were done,
it was Bjork.
We went on. It was Bjork.
Yeah.
As soon as they were done, we went on. And there was, it's an okay amount of people in there. I mean, I think by the third or fourth song, you couldn't fit another person in. I just remember that show being one of those magical shows. That was one of those shows for me where, how you just, it's like, there's an old saying, it's like, the band does 1,000 shows, 700 of them are going to be okay. Pretty good. 200 of them are going to be, damn, that was fucking great show. 90 of those shows are going to be like, oh my god, dude, that was the show. 9 of those are going to be like, that was life changing. That was life changing. And then there's going to be that one show that makes you go do 1,000 more. And that Bonnaroo show was that show.
Wow. That happens. Awesome. That happens a lot. We hear that a lot. And I think, honestly, that's why Brad and I do this, because we've had those moments. We're both veterans of more than a dozen anyway, and we definitely have had those moments. And you don't know when they're coming. You don't know
when they're coming.
Boy, this is amazing. And see, this goes to show you, even though Barry and I, between the two of us, have been to 27 Bonnaroos, I just went back to the 2013 lineup. The 2013 lineup, you guys were on the last line.
Oh, wow.
Last line.
You were on the very
last
line of the 2013 Bonnaroo lineup, and now look at you.
Now look at you. Wow.
Wow.
It's been a good couple years.
You guys know where you're playing and what time?
Not offhand.
Stumper right now.
Okay.
We're in the studio right now. That's like all I know. Go to Phoenix on Sunday.
Yeah.
That's about as far into the future as I tend to be aware of.
We've talked before about the fact that Bonnaroo does a good job of that, and it's fun for us as fans to see a band like you guys on a small stage one year, come back, and you're on a huge stage the next year. What is that like for you guys as band members? Is it something you think about, you strive for?
Yeah. I mean,
that's the dream, right?
Did you spend a lot of time on the farm that weekend, and do you plan to do that when you're here? Will you have time to go maybe see other acts and hang out and play with other people?
Our first time we did have a couple. We had a couple nights because also I think we played one night and then we had like a day show and then another. Like I think we had things for 3 days of the weekend, so we got a lot of good after night hangs. I love a festival that doesn't stop after the headliner. Like that's one of my favorite moves when it's like, all right, Paul McCartney or whoever's done, now come to this tent and like watch this guy play a violin and a tuba over a DJ beat or something till 5 in the morning.
Exactly.
But that's like when festivals get real.
Right.
So that's something I love about Bonnaroo. I think we're going to have maybe a night or two to explore. Yeah. But then the day after, we got to get out or something. So not as much time, but some.
Hello, can anyone hear me? And I can't believe you came undone. It's not your style, and I'm the only one who ever believed in you. I always saw you through the toughest of times. That's my style. You were broke, you were tired, you were cold, you were living life.
The Revivalists, the star of this week's show, because you asked for it and because they're so ingrained in New Orleans culture. Being from New Orleans, the way that they met, the way that they have grown, the way that this band has taken on a insane reputation for their live show and the crowds that they bring. This is going to be one of the big ones, I'm going to guess, on the Which Stage Friday sometime mid-afternoon, late afternoon probably?
Yeah, based on the reaction that we've gotten, I'm going to say they definitely will be one of the biggest ones. And just listening to that last song, they're a perfect Bonnaroo type of act.
Yeah, they are. And it's going to go in a lot of different directions. Got such a voice that can go with anything. That's why he traveled with Galactic and was one of the traveling lead singers for that band. His voice can get soulful. It can get almost Rage Against the Machine-like. By the way, they cover Rage Against the Machine in their live show. The crowds just respond to them in different ways than just a normal rock show.
It's funny. I don't know if you're the same as I am, but I can hear certain songs and they are one of those bands, and I can just picture midnight on the farm with the lights and the stage. And that's how I hear it.
Right.
You know?
It could work in the mid-afternoon. It could work at midnight. No matter what place you put them, they're going to fit.
Yeah. It's just a different kind of vibe than seeing them in a theater or an arena or something.
And I wonder if they take that vibe and they bring it to the studio for their new album. What a segue, because that's what we asked them. This is the Revivalists on the What Podcast. So you're writing stuff now. How's it going?
Pretty great. Pretty great.
Do you guys have it ready to go when you walk in the studio, or you just sort of piecemeal it together when you get there? I've always wondered. We were doing Sturgill Simpson on our podcast last week, and Sturgill wrote this album, A Sailor's Guide to Life. And he had it all written and ready to go. And once he walked into the studio, he was done in 4 days.
Dang, that's a little bit more streamlined than we are, I think. We got like 7, I guess kind of 8 people now. We're all kind of all over the place in terms of what we want in terms of vision and how we kind of piece things together. This has been easier. This has been a little bit quicker than normal. We came in with a lot of stuff pretty well worked up, and we've been working with a guy named Dave Cobb, who...
yeah, I know Dave. He did the Sturgill Simpson record.
He did Sturgill, yeah.
Yeah, did that one. It was funny. I was watching the Grammys with my wife, and when Chris Stapleton won the record, and he came up with him, and he's like, "Oh, that's that guy we're going to be working with in a month."
That's right. That's exactly cool. Right. The guys that straddle the line between country and rock. Boy, it's Dave Cobb, the guy you call.
Yeah, I mean he's remarkable too, just in terms of like ideas just kind of come out of him like a faucet. It's crazy. Yeah. So it's been really cool to work with him because it's a lot. It kind of cuts down a lot of the time that usually when we get in the studio, there's a lot more of like, okay, now we need to figure out like, should this be that or whatever, or this thing, and he'll just come in and be like, okay, that, boom, done. Track everything in one room, singer in the middle of the room. It's just awesome. It's been sounding really great.
Have you done the previous albums the same way?
No, normally this has actually been a bit of an adjustment for us in terms of kind of how we use the studio. Normally we get in and we have ideas how we go, and kind of the producers we work with are more about kind of shaping what we're doing and basically just telling us when not to play, It's like telling who not to play at what point because there's a lot of us. Yeah. And that's usually what we need more than anything. It's like, hey, if you drop out in the verse here. So normally we'll kind of track a couple things together and then do a lot of overdubs. And this has been a lot more kind of live and performance, and the take is the take, which is very exciting and maybe a little bit scary, but what we've been able to hear so far is
it sounds like you're living
really
dangerously
cool.
a little bit.
Oh, yeah. On the edge, man.
Like when you have 8 people in the room, is everybody contributing ideas, or is that become a little bit too many cooks in the kitchen?
It can sometimes. I think for us at this point, we've been a unit for long enough that everybody kind of has an idea of what we're supposed to do or what's generally our role or our part in kind of building up a song. It's been helpful having a guy like Cobb in there, though, who's just like, you do this, you do that. And everybody's like, all right, sure.
Gotcha.
You're a genius. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just getting ready to say it. You have to have a producer with a sort of strong will, don't you? Because you guys have been together long enough. You have that sort of that you can speak to each other without having to add all the apologies. I think you're a great guy, but
that's a good point. That's something that takes a long time to develop, and we definitely need somebody who is capable of telling us that we're all talking at the same time, and we need to stop doing that.
We have that same issue here.
That's just in life. And I don't mean to read tea leaves or try to, go places I probably shouldn't, but if Dave Cobb's working on it, are you guys adjusting the sound a little bit?
That's kind of hard to say. I think that's something that an outsider might have a better idea of that than I do. To me, everything we do just kind of feels like us.
Okay.
Maybe the overall aesthetic, not necessarily like the songwriting and the tones and stuff, but kind of Cobb's approach about more of kind of, we don't need to have so much polish and kind of, like I said, let the take be the take. I think that's something that's a little different, but I think to me it all just sounds like us.
We are men amongst mountains pressing into the night, but we know now what we do. We know now what we do. We are the ones that turn the fire into light. But we know now what we do. With the changes we go through, but love makes it easy. It makes it alright. Chase the sun to sleep, and if we never come down, we won't ever come down. It don't make no difference to me, 'cause we are the ones.
So you get a new producer, you get back into the studio. How different is it from one to the next, from one album to the next, considering the success that you've had? How does this operation feel different, if it does at all?
It's been similar and different at the same time. The things to me that were similar, and Rob would probably, I'm sure, would agree, where the meat of the album has been us in the same room just tracking everything together. I just remember just thinking back to last week, we cut 2 songs, the song called Celebration and the song called Got Love. We were kind of tracking them, amps separated out in just different rooms, and I was kind of in the booth, and we were just like, all right, you know what, let's try something. He was like, Dave said this, he was like, let's take all the amps out of the booth. I want to get you in there, in the room, on a 57, recording just like how Elvis did. We took all the amps out, put them in the room. I went in there with a 57, and we just kind of cut the song live like we would do it, at a show or whatever, to kind of like really, really, truly capture some of that energy. Because, there is something to be said about, when we're all actually in the same room and our amps are in there, and there's this bleed, and there's just, it's like a audio engineer's nightmare, but there is some magic that occurs there.
It's something that we're always wary about because there's so many of us and there's so much stuff going on that we're always like, oh, God, but what about the isolation? What if this thing happens and then we can't do that? But then we just get the playback, and it's like, everything sounds cool. And one thing I really like about Cobb is that a lot of times we'll be, like last night, Michael, our trumpet player, and I we were doing some horn stuff, and at one point we were like, hey, I think I might have been a little out of tune there or something, and Cobb's just like, cool. He's not trying to go back and fix it. He's like, that's real. That's what makes it sound like a real performance.
Right. So this is fascinating because if you hear about Dave Cobb, this is a similar story that he has with a lot of artists, and that he likes that sort of live feel in a recording session. What's strange, though, is that if you take all the comments that we've gotten from this show so far, it's all been, if there's been a common thread, get the Revivalists, get the Revivalists, get the Revivalists. And it's probably because those people that are asking about you guys have seen the live show. I've seen the live show. It's a different experience than on the record, and I wonder if it was a conscious or a subconscious decision by you guys or management or whoever to get maybe the producer in Nashville that specializes in live in recording sessions live.
Yeah. It was a little bit of that. I mean, there was a little bit of that, but I think we all kind of knew that his aesthetic in doing that was definitely a thing. We knew that for sure. To what extent that was going to, we were going to utilize that, we had no idea, just because we had just never really, we'd never I'd never been, I'm always in the isolation. We definitely cut stuff together. That's how we record, but
you standing in the middle of the room with a live mic is crazy. That's terrifying. That's like a tightrope,
Yeah.
I think that's also something that I think we've kind of been chasing that live feel on at least our last two records, but I think maybe it helps having a guy like Cobb who's kind of he's going to push you off the cliff, Yeah. You're standing at the high dive and you're like, I don't know if I can do it. And he's like, yes, you can.
Yeah. Well,
here's a hand in the small of your back and I'm shoving you off.
You guys are Thelma and he's Louise. You guys are going off the cliff together.
Exactly.
That image of you standing uncomfortably in the center of the room, I mean, that can be kind of a big deal.
I wasn't comfortable.
He's very comfortable.
Yeah. It was
that was kind of the point. It never even occurred to us to do this, and then it's just like, wow.
There's some empowering faith that holds us and binds us. Lo and behold, we pray that it finds us. Will answer my prayers, mend all my tears. 'Cause of me, my mind cares, but like a fish out the water, I just can't be,
The Revivalist, the star of this week's The What Podcast. More with the guys coming up here in a minute. Barry, I think that what you wanted to jump into is how much pressure they're feeling about working on this new album, especially with a guy like Dave Cobb, and we'll get there here in a second, plus a very interesting story from the road. Apparently they have a thing called a Ringo.
Yeah.
There's a Ringo problem with these guys?
Yeah. They were not a problem. They when they were recording, I don't remember if it was the last album or the previous one, but it was a pretty intense session, and Rolling Stone had done an interview or a Beatles retrospective, and it had a full-page picture of Ringo, and one of the guys just kind of held it up in front of, I think, Dave's or maybe Rob's face, and didn't say anything.
Right.
Just this kind of, be there, be inspired or whatever. And so they've turned that into sort of a running gag, like you do with somebody leaves their phone on the table, you'll type something into their Facebook.
Yeah,
or
they're a bit more gentle than I.
They are much more gentle. They don't have a problem with Ringo. They like Ringo very much. It's just become this kind of running thing. So.
Yeah. Well, the whatpodcast.com, the website, you can interact with us anytime. That's going to get you in for tickets to Bonnaroo with camping access. I wanted to go through some of the emails that we've gotten because last week we asked for some fun Bonnaroo camping stories. You shared some of those, and you got in for Bonnaroo tickets. This comes from Timothy. 2 years ago, we arrived Wednesday afternoon for our 6th Bonnaroo and started setting up camp. Opened up our trunk and found that the cooler had catastrophic failure, effectively soaking every item of clothing and camping gear we had over our 13-hour drive. Not a great way to start the vacation. They started setting things up, frustrated, struggling. They're tired, sweaty, and pissed, kind of the opposite of what room meant to them. This is what he says. Well, our kind neighbors could see the struggle, stopped by, asked us if they could help, and basically took over our setup while lending us some dry threads and drink. Not the wildest story in the world, but it's the spirit of Bonnaroo, complete strangers dropping everything they were doing to help their neighbors without any expectations. That's a damn good Bonnaroo camping story.
That's a great camping story. And how many of those do you have? I mean, I think...
Well, I do. I have one of those every year. When I show up, I drop my stuff out of the car, and then I say, Barry, can you set up my
that
camp?
up. Denson. Yeah, I remember the first year, maybe the second year, I thought it'd be cool to kind of go by the Lost and Found tent and just see what sort of things are being turned in.
Right.
And there was a guy in front of me, and just as I walked up, the clerk or the person or whatever gave him his wallet. He had lost it in the middle of, I think, Radiohead. So imagine that crowd.
No kidding.
He dropped his wallet in that crowd, and not only did someone find it and take it to Lost and Found, everything that was in it was still in it.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I've told people many, many times, I've never heard so much as a crossword at Bonnaroo. The vibe, it's real. People, I would see people standing in line and then realize they needed to go get something, so they get out of line and they come back and they go to the back or the front, whichever and the people that where they were in place say, no, come on, get back in. And just that kind of thing. It makes it a lot of fun. You feel it the moment you start checking in. There's just a different vibe.
By the way, I got a question for you. Are the horseback cops still around?
Yes.
Are they really? I haven't seen one in years. All I remember is one year being so, I guess, whacked out of my mind. I looked around, I was like, I think I see horses, but I don't know if this is real or not.
If they had stripes or they were purple, you might be really worried.
We got this comment from John. I remember my first encounter with the horse security my first year at Bonnaroo in 2008. I didn't have my glasses, couldn't read my map. Being stubborn like I am, I refused to ask for help. Just my luck, one of the horse security ladies could tell I was struggling and lost. She helped me find my campsite that night. I could have used her my first year because I walked for hours trying to find where I was staying.
That camp out there is massive.
Yeah, it's so big.
And people get lost all the time.
Yep.
I want to thank everybody for sending their comments. I've tried to personally respond back to everybody, and if I haven't, I will. Yeah, it means a lot to us.
Just give me your personal cell phone number. It's easy.
Call me.
Yeah, drop us a comment. Get in for Bonnaroo tickets. All you got to do is comment on the podcast feedback, any type of feedback, positive, negative, we don't care. Post it now at thewhatpodcast.com. It's going to get you in for Bonnaroo tickets. Back to the Revivalists, the star of this week's The What Podcast. It's amazing to hear that you are so comfortable being back in the studio, even though Dave Cobb's asking you to do other things.
Yeah, how much of that is because you guys have done it? You sort of the slow and steady. Do you think you might feel different if this had happened your first album or first single?
I think it would be definitely a different thing. I certainly think so.
But yeah, I think it helps a lot that because we kind of built up that fan base and all of this support, kind of one person at a time, one town at a time, 6 or 7 or 8 people sleeping on the floor of a single Days Inn at a time. I think it just really helps with kind of the sustainability and the foundation of everything we've got. That hits come and go, and that stuff could dry up in an instant, but we'll always still have like a great community of people behind us, and we'll always be able to tour, and we'll always be able to have fun, and we'll always be able to be the Revivalists. Which to me is just like, that's how I sleep at night,
That leads me to a good question about you guys being together. Who's the leader of the pack right now with the whole ring-going thing? Who's got the best ring-goed?
Phil, I think Chris Finney's still on top. Our former producer of a couple of our albums, engineer on a few of our records, guy who sent a student after me at the end of a tour in Atlanta, who's just like, hey, I thought she was going to take a selfie with me. And she's like, this is a picture of Ringo on my phone.
Nice.
I think the ball's at our court right now. I think we still need to, I got to get him back.
When was that, Rob?
That was after the last show at the Tabernacle at the end of our last tour.
Oh, okay. Well, he got you then, because me and Zach were in Vegas over the summer, and there was a nice little picture of old Ringo, and I actually FaceTimed him. It was a little FaceTime, and he was
nice.
like, "What are you doing, buddy?" I was like, "No, Zach is just out here, hanging in Vegas," and then boom, Ringo.
That's pretty funny.
Boom.
We should tell people what we're talking about if they don't know. Anybody who leaves their Facebook page open or leaves their phone without the code, leaves it on the bar stool or the bar top, somebody's going to get it and they're going to put something rude on it or whatever. Yeah. You guys post pictures of Ringo to each other, so that's hilarious. Boy. About the student bringing.
Well, you guys are so much more kind than my friends because, boy, I've been pregnant 15 times. I don't know.
You got the potion, yeah, you really do. Make everybody fall in love with
I see a natural fit. By now, everyone knows you're from New Orleans. On the same night, Trombone Shorty is playing Bonnaroo. So both of you guys are playing Friday night. I have a feeling that you guys might have something planned together.
Well,
no comment.
I'm not going to say that we don't, but I'm not going to say that we do.
Okay.
As of right now, I'll be honest. There's no talk of that.
Okay. Well, I'm putting it in your ear. I'm dropping the hint.
Not to say, I don't, that's not to say that it won't happen.
Okay.
I mean, I love Troy for sure. I love his music. I love his band. I'm best friends with his guitar player. Like, we're great friends,
Pete Morano, what's up?
Possibility.
There you go. The Revivalists, the star of this week's The What Podcast. We appreciate you listening. Hey, follow along, thewhatpodcast.com or thewhat_podcast on Twitter. We're announcing next week's podcast in the upcoming days. Who will we talk to? What artist will we take a deep dive into? You'll find out the what_podcast on Twitter. Barry Corder, I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right.
You guys keep sending in those comments and suggestions.
Yes, thank you for your comments, your downloads, and thank you, Rob and Dave from The Revivalists, therevivalist.com, thewhatpodcast.com. Tickets to Bonnaroo available there. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Journey through the stories that define the artists playing Bonnaroo. Who are they? What are they? What will you see? The what? Which bands this year that matter? With Brad Steiner and Barry Corder.